team.
Greetings to Sega fans around the world, seasonal or otherwise. It's us, the Sega Guys, with another unscripted, unrehearsed present for your Sega stockings. I'm Dan, the Mega Driver. Where you find me, you'll find the bootleg sampler to my SEGA Flash. It's James the Segaholic. How you doing, mate?
I'm brilliant, mate. Aye, two legendary demo discs there, mate. If people haven't checked out the title of the show already, then that tells you where we might be going. But aye, I'm brilliant, mate. How's yourself?
Very good, mate. Very good. It's crazy to think that we're recording our WinterFest episode for our good friends at RadioSEGA already. Always enjoy doing these. It's always a laugh, and yeah, it's always a pleasure to be on this seasonal segment of theirs.
That's crazy to think. It's what, our third one now?
Our third one, yeah.
I mean, where the hell's that going? And obviously we had the hiatus that was in there as well, which kind of took 6 months away from our recording. But at the same time, you know, our third WinterFest. I remember whenever we got offered to do the first one, and we were absolutely buzzing. We were in our infancy as a podcast, and you know, here we are 3 years later. Part
of the furniture now, mate. We're just part of the old Christmas decorations that RadioSEGA pulled down from the loft, blow the dust off it.
Stick that in the tree, stick that.
Exactly. But no, I'm great, mate. Obviously, we're recording this fairly early, so loving the Mega Drive Mini. I think our viewers and listeners will know that we've been loving that recently. But a lot more Sega goodness to come for the second half of the year. By the time this goes out, I'm pretty sure I'll be knee deep in Sonic Frontiers. Got that on pre-order today.
Yeah, I seen John Linneman also had a little cheeky look what I found. The Switch version earlier on as well, and obviously at the time of recording, the soundtrack apparently leaked as well. But RadioSEGA, you know, fair play to them, have said that they're not going to ruin it and, you know, put it onto their playlist early. They're going to wait for the release to do it properly. So fair play, it's the right way to do things. But yeah, I mean, Sonic Frontiers is coming. Even today, you know, we've had a couple of, you know, collaboration offers as well that we're working on. So in terms of ourselves, mate, we are on fire and just raring to go. More content. I mean, we're recording this for WinterFest. It's the start of November. We've got recordings lined up all the way through to Christmas, and we've got shows in the bag, obviously, to take us all the way through to the end of the year. So, it's all systems go at the Sega Guys.
Yeah, some fantastic collaborations lined up, some really exciting video content coming down. So whether you're listening on RadioSEGA, whether you're checking us out on YouTube, there is a lot to be excited about. And yeah, those collaborations, very excited about those, mate. But equally excited to talk about WinterFest today. So I know, I think when we were talking about this one, we did try and think whether we could get a AAA superstar to come on and do a WinterFest episode with us. Unfortunately, Arnold Schwarzenegger wasn't available for us for this WinterFest episode. But we always think about Christmas. We all love presents. We all love getting a gift, getting something for free. What's the best gift? It's a game, isn't it? And, you know, what's the best free games that you get? They're SEGA Saturn demo discs, aren't they? So when we're talking about Christmas presents, free gifts, the greatest gifts all around, they're those SEGA Saturn discs. So yes, mate, I think we're going to talk through some of our favourites and some of those highlights that really stuck out to us through the SEGA Flash, SEGA bootleg sampler years.
Aye, that's it, mate. I mean, it's the kind of the Flash demo discs are ones that I've put on my Fenrir a couple of months ago, and it was great to just go through them again, and they did bring back a lot of memories, especially the music, which you'll have heard playing in the background of the kind of intro segment there, and just it's quite interesting, and we'll talk about this as we go through them. You know, obviously earlier on you had a kind of deluge of playable demos and a kind of mixture of videos, but as time went on, it kind of focused more on videos. But then on the later discs, there was some videos that gave you hope for games that were coming that never did. So the Flash demo discs are very much, I think, if you owned a Saturn and supported it in its day, they're very much something that became something to look forward to. They became a kind of event in themselves, whether you got it with the console as a pack-in, whether you got it with SEGA Saturn magazine, there's SEGA Power demo discs, there was, you know, Christmas nights, which was lying on a table outside the electronics boutique in Curry's, take one. I'd go back in the DeLorean and take 20 of them if I could.
I'll take 100. I can sell them for 15 quid each in 2022.
To the pub.
Yeah. Want to buy Christmas nights?
Well, Christmas nights, mate. £15 each, 3 for 40.
But no, you're right, mate. They're so intrinsically tied to that whole Sega Saturn experience of the 90s. I mean, one of the things, and I've seen it a lot on the PlayStation side as well, because it's a big thing about disc-based consoles in that era. When you bought your PlayStation, you bought it with Demo 1. And I mentioned PlayStation because obviously PlayStation is so popular, so well thought of, and you see it a lot. And the same goes for the Sega Saturn, and not as many people mention it because obviously PlayStation is a lot more ingrained in the public consciousness. But things like the bootleg sampler, the Sega Flash discs, they really were an intrinsic part of the experience, because when you first brought that Sega Saturn home, and you and I both had a few bundled games of our ones, but once you played those, you always wanted more, and that's where those demo discs came into it.
That's it. I mean, obviously, looking at it whenever I got the one, also my uncle bought it at launch, and it was Virtua Fighter that was packed in, but you had the bootleg sampler that came along as well, so that was like the first time I'd experienced Sega Rally at home, and even that in itself, just the kind of, again, I've got that on Fenrir, and I managed to obtain a ROM for that, and just seeing the crumpled paper, kind of the brown paper sort of menu they've got there with the bootleg sampler kind of red ink stamp on there, and the logos for all the games that are on it, and just brings back so many great memories just of that time. So it's the PlayStation ones, as you mentioned, mate. I think obviously they got a disc every month on official PlayStation magazine, and I think the benefit that they had was they had a ton of software. There was that many games from first and third parties that they had tons to pick from. Sometimes there was a lot of crap on them. Sometimes they were kind of not bad, kind of big releases. Like I remember Tekken 3 at one point got that kind of fancy glossy black kind of CD jewel case with a Tekken 3 sticker, and it was all very fancy and all the way it was done. But the thing I remember most about the flash discs was that the early ones did give you a real sense of, wow, where is this platform going? The stuff that was on it was just incredible, and we're going to talk through some of our favourites on this one.
Yeah, I think you make a good point there about the sheer volume of PlayStation games. I think in those, especially when you're talking 95, 96, there was certainly almost as many Sega Saturn games as there were PlayStation games. I think the difference was that Sega were a lot more content to put their marquee titles, their AAA games, so to speak, on the discs, whereas as you said, just with PlayStation, they'd chuck anything on there. You'd get all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff on there, and some stuff like what was it? There's I think it's Excalibur 2550 something. I ended up enjoying on a demo disc from the PlayStation back in the day. But that's like, you look at the sort of stuff, and we will get to the games when we talk through the various discs that we used to get. At least from an official Sega Saturn perspective, those games were consistently excellent quality. I don't think you could knock any of them, because even revisiting these, even replaying them, researching for this episode, there was a few surprises in there.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're looking at the bootleg sampler, get my words out there, alone, which is kind of first one that I remember looking at. You've got a list here. So playable demos wise, you had Bug, Sega Rally, World Series Baseball, and Clockwork Knight 2. For videos, you had Daytona USA, NHL, All-Star Hockey, Virtua Fighter 2, Mysteria, Panzer Dragoon, Virtua Cop, Wing Arms, and there's something on here I can't even pronounce. It might be some German video, it looks like. But it's that for me is the ones I said where Sega Rally jumps out, but also the Virtua Fighter 2 video, to get a glimpse of that, and it's just basically a watch mode that it loads up.
Yeah.
And some of the hitboxes aren't intact in it. Excuse me. So you can see like all the throws connect, but whenever they're trying to punch, like you'll see Jeffrey swinging a punch at Cage, and he's hitting him, but there's no reaction. So the hitboxes aren't there yet, but the throws all work. So Jeffrey's picking you up, flinging you about, and it's the energy bars are going down, but the punches and kicks are doing nothing. And it does have a little warning to say it's not been PAL optimised yet, so this isn't the full speed it will run at whenever you play it. But again, just to get that sort of early doors, it did feel very much like yes, you see, you enjoyed Virtua Fighter just now, but this is what's coming, you know. And it was a great glimpse forward to see. You did really feel, playing the bootleg sampler especially, that this system's going places. This is a powerhouse. You know, look what we're going to get, you know, soon. So that's the kind of the one that sticks out to me the most, kind of memory wise, is the bootleg sampler. But you're right, mate. They weren't afraid to put their kind of big first party games on demo discs. You know, it was, some might say that's because that's all they had, because, you know, Sega were very much with the Saturn. It was relied heavily on first party as third party support kind of dwindled quite quickly, as we know. But I mean, looking through the list of the discs here, they were very spaced out, but they were packed with great stuff.
They absolutely were, and I think even that bootleg, the very first bootleg sampler, the games that you just listed there that are playable, World Series Baseball, Sega Rally, Clockwork Knight 2 and Bug, were kind of marquee titles for 1995. I mean, obviously Sega Rally was, but World Series Baseball, and you know, I'm not a massive advocate of the sport, and I'm not sure if you are either, but it is one of those games that's, you know, considered the best reflections of that sport. So very, very well regarded. I do actually have that and the sequel, and even though I'm not a fan of baseball, it's one of those games that kind of transcends the sport and is very good. So yeah, that's one of their top titles. Bug as well. Bug, another game that, you know, back in 90s, it's easy for people to look at it now, especially, you know, post Mario 64. But I looked at Bug and I thought, and I think we mentioned this on the Saturn Mini episode, I thought this is what a 3D platformer should look like. And it's still a lot of fun and still an excellent looking game. So big hitters right out the gate there. And as you say, you know, if you're picking up your brand new Sega Saturn in 1995, you got your Virtua Fighter 1, you got Daytona, and you got Clockwork Knight on, and then you see this on the horizon. I think that's a great advert for the system itself.
It was, you know, as I say, you've got Virtua Fighter 1 there, and you've loaded this up, and then you're kind of looking at it and you're going, it's a great indication about, you know, where the system's going, what kind of games you've got on the horizon coming, you know. So as much as there's a bit of a kind of a malignant of the Saturn that, you know, that only came with Virtua Fighter, you know, and then there was talk about the remix. Obviously we got that for free, and that was kind of coming down the pipeline, but can the Saturn do 3D textured polygons? And then, you know, you're loading this demo disc up and you're seeing where you're going. So it was a, you know, bootleg sampler was a great indication. And then as we've said, through the Flash volumes that came, they were very spaced out, but the level of quality that was on there was pretty remarkable.
Yeah, because I personally never did have the experience of the bootleg sampler when it came out. So my first experience of a Sega Saturn demo disc was SEGA Flash, which we'll get onto. But I can only imagine, and I think this is some of the stuff that's kind of lost through like the revisionism and kind of looking back in that people can't really relive that moment. But if you're playing Virtua Fighter, and Virtua Fighter to me, and we've both said this many times, that Virtua Fighter was mind-blowing back in 1995. And same with Daytona. And loads of people like to say when it compared to Ridge Racer, it didn't look as great. Obviously, we feel differently. They achieves on their different levels. But putting that to the side, you've got Daytona, and then you've got a disc that's got this sample of Sega Rally on. You've got Virtua Cop on there. You know, it's not an interactive demo, but it's a demo nonetheless. You've got Clockwork Knight 2, which is, you know, a visual bump from Clockwork Knight. You've got all this brilliant stuff coming down the pipes. And it's weird when you look back at some of this stuff and you look at the stuff that said on Games Master, and Dominic Diamond said the struggling Saturn is struggling for games, or bad influence that didn't look too favourably on the Saturn, and all these outlets that you're saying, all the Saturn is struggling for software, and you look at this demo, it's, well, did you not look at this little CD that actually came with the console? It's got some pretty exciting stuff on there, let me tell you.
I mean, especially whenever you've seen the footage now of Bad Influence. You know, it's been, I think, was it Sharker retweeted it, I put it out on their account, and it's Andy Crane, you know, ripping open the PlayStation 1 demo disc or the PlayStation 1 package, and he's ripping it apart like a 5-year-old at Christmas, and he's flinging this and that, and then he goes, "Oh, demo disc." And it's like, well, did you not rip the Saturn packaging apart? Find the demo disc to enjoy as well. It's just you're looking at these demo discs coming down the line, these games that are on this, and you're thinking, it's great to see where it's going. And then obviously Flash Volume 1, kind of replaced, obviously you're down the line, you're looking at games from kind of 96.
Yeah.
Bootleg Sampler was more of a kind of a launch, but teasing what's to come. Then you get to Flash Volume 1, you've got Baku Baku Animals, the mighty Panzer Dragoons Vi, Golden Axe the Duel, Sega Rally again, and then you've only got 2 actual rolling demos, which are Euro 96 and Virtua Fighter 2 again. So again, you're bringing in stuff like Golden Axe the Duel. I really like Golden Axe the Duel. It's a bit of hate, but actually, I like the way that it's got that kind of Guardian Hero style, the camera going in and out. Loading times are a bit on the kind of wonky side, but I actually enjoy it.
Oh mate, I love Golden Axe Duel, and I think it's one of these things. So as I said, I kind of missed Bootleg Sampler 1 at the time, and so I look at it and I look back at what the Sega Saturn was doing. I think that's if I was a Sega Saturn owner then, I would have been amazed. Sega Flash Volume 1 was the version that I got with my Sega Saturn, knowing I got mine in 1996, and I got Sega Rally Daytona and Virtua Fighter 2, which I was in love with all 3 at the time, but still found time to put that disc in there, and surprise, surprise, I pretty much loved absolutely everything on there. Now, the Virtua Fighter 2 demo, I don't think to this day I've even tried, because I actually got the full game bundled with my console. But Baku Baku, played it and loved. Golden Axe the Duel, though, I completely agree with you, mate. As someone that loves SNK games, Samurai Showdown, loves their fighting games, I know a lot of people say that it kind of is bland and uninspired, and yeah, maybe it's lacking in the originality stakes, but it's got the 6-button Street Fighter layout. Your top 3 are punches, your bottom 3 are kicks, light, heavy, medium. You've got a very Samurai Showdown like sort of camera panning, zooming in and out, which is an amazing advertisement for how good the Sega Saturn was at 2D stuff back then. And then you've got the kind of I love the way that the magic is your super bar, so to speak. So you pick up, it's just like the classic beat 'em up games where you kick the crap out of the little gnomes as they're coming across the screen. Yeah, give me some of that magic potion, mate. Ooh. The super bar goes up and then you can do your super moves on the. I thought, I'm a massive fan of Golden Axe Duel, mate. I absolutely love it. I didn't pick it up until later because it was hard to get hold of, and surprise, surprise, it's extremely expensive even a few years ago. So I got a Japanese version now, and I really love Golden Axe Duel, mate. So I agree there.
Aye. No, I had a lot of fun with that, and obviously Panzer Dragoons Vi speaks for itself. We've spoken about that many times on this show. It's part of 1996's lineup. We're going to talk about it a lot more, and obviously Saturn years 96, which is going to come obviously next year. And then you've got Euro 96, which is a game I got with my bundle for my own Saturn, at Christmas 96. Again, we've spoke about it, it will be previously because the World Cup show has just been at the time people will be listening to this. So Euro 96 got a lot of love on that, and rightly so at the time. Again, it was a lot of fun, tied in well with the tournament that obviously we just had in the summer. So it's again a lot to love on there. Virtua Fighter 2 is another rolling demo, so they're just kind of teasing that ahead again. That was the big hitter. I know we're talking about the big 3, but I still think VF2 of the 3 is still the kind of, that was the marquee one. They were building everything towards that. I think because of the criticism that the VF1 had got from not so much the media at the time, because we've already spoken about how Edge 10 out of 10 first next generation game, Remix came along, and then the kind of narrative has been that Sega were ashamed of VF1, so they gave you that whenever it was really just a test bed. So VF2 still on there as a rolling demo, but you then go forward again to volume 2, and you're getting more big hitters coming in, playable, a couple of bits of repetition, but again, some kind of rolling demo videos of more new titles. So, you know, you've got playable wise, you've got Athlete Kings, Zwei makes another appearance, Baku Baku Animal again, Sega Worldwide Soccer 97 comes into play, and of course the Mighty Knights into Dreams makes an appearance as a playable demo. I mean, Knights is a playable demo.
Yeah, I know. And this one came out with issue 12 of Sega Saturn magazine. So this was the first magazine-specific disc. I mean, Baku Baku and Panzer having repeats again. I can't begrudge that. For both of those, when it came to Sega Flash Volume 1, they were probably my two most played demos. And they both led to me buying the game. Panzer Dragoon the most, because I think that's almost the perfect demo, that stage 3 where you're going through the forest and the music is perfect, and you fight that boss at the end, which as a kid, as a teen, you know, terrified and thrilled me more than anything I'd seen. It was you know, really swinging through the trees and also that sort of stuff. I was like, I have to have this game. So I was a Panzer Dragoon fan from that point. See, I can't begrudge them having Baku Baku and Panzer Dragoon on there again. And there'll be a few more repetitions on there, mate, as we go through these, I'm sure.
I mean, Flash 1 and 2 were also the discs that used the same UI as the Japanese demo discs as well. So I'm not sure, I've not played all the Japanese ones, I'm not sure if they amended their UI, but whenever you run Flash Volume 1 and 2, you actually see the Japanese Sega Saturn logo in the background.
Yeah.
And the UI for Flash 1 and 2 is really nice. You know, you get the kind of tunnel going towards these kind of what looks like bulk doors in a spaceship, and they open up and it's do 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 do, and then it's like there's like little like screens either side as it goes through the tunnel, and then it comes into a main room and there's like a big rotating kind of globe in the middle of the room with all these tellies, and as it turns round there's a game running on each of them. So that was really nice. But you know, obviously as we moved on to 3, that's whenever the UK or Western kind of menu came to the fore with the, kind of the music and things like that. So I mean, in terms of Flash Volume 2's rolling demos, we had Exhumed making its first appearance, Story of Thor 2, Virtua Fighter Kids, and 3 Dirty Dwarves.
You know, 3 Dirty Dwarves is still a game that I've not played to this day. Yeah, I've got it on the Fenrir now. It's one that I really need to get round to. One that I've always wanted to pick up, but even if you want to pick it up, Japanese or Western, it's hideously expensive. I mean, there's a good friend on Twitter who's called the Third Dwarf. I think he's got a complete Sega Saturn Power collection. Huge Sega Saturn fan. I mean, very similar to us, mate. I've spoken before about, you know, people that begrudge the Saturn don't know the feeling of the excitement of playing these games, of seeing the rolling demos, of, you know, the anticipation and actually playing it. And when you finally get your hands on it, these games didn't disappoint. And I think that's very true for, again, this demo, this right here. You know, we've spoken about Daytona a few times, but, you know, Tomb Raider, Virtua On, the other 2 newbies on here, again, massive games, and really, again, showed the how Saturn games were progressing visually. You had this, you know, the Tomb Raider obviously on the PlayStation as well, but Tomb Raider was, you know, you can't understate the impact that game had at the time. And Virtua On, I think we've spoken before about the visual quality on that one and how it was a miracle that it got the arcade cab onto a Sega Saturn disc.
I mean, Volume 3, Bug 2, rolling demo, Knights, another rolling demo, Virtua Cop 2 makes an appearance, Dark Saviour, Fighting Vipers, and Mr. Bones rounds off the video demos. And as you mentioned, Daytona USA CCE, Worldwide Soccer 97, once again, makes an appearance, Tomb Raider, as you said, and Virtual On. And for me, the highlight of that disc is definitely Virtual On.
Yeah.
And again, remember seeing that for the first time and could not believe what I was seeing. Again, you were hearing the kind of the rumblings and the kind of the gaming media. You were picking up like CVG and other kind of like multi-format gaming magazines. You were going to school and you were kind of getting the PlayStation owners slagging you off. Oh, Saturn Kennedy 3D. You You don't want Virtua Fighter, you want Tekken and all that kind of stuff. And then you see Virtual On and get to actually get your hands on Virtual On and actually play it. And it was a real visual feast. It's a brilliant. I think it's probably one of. Everybody focuses on like kind of VF2 and Sega Rally and Last Bronx and stuff, but I think even though it got the twin sticks in Japan, I think Virtual On gets quite kind of unfairly overlooked over here. I don't think it gets quite the fanfare that it should. It's a bloody good port.
Yeah, it really doesn't. It gets it, as you say, mate. It gets a lot more respect in Japan for what it did, and the team worked a miracle. I think I can't recall the lead developer's name on here now, and he was kind of cursing the Saturn for how difficult it was to port Virtual On, because it's a massively ambitious arcade game. It's not like, if you're a racing game, you've got a linear track to drive through. If you're a fighting game, you've got your two fighters and your arena, and not to belittle anything that Sega Rally or Virtual Cop did, but in terms of cutting back, you can make those cuts and they are a little less obvious. Virtual On was two giant mechs fighting in these huge, expansive arenas, and not only are they 3D, and the arenas have to be 3D, you can't really get around that, but then they're firing huge 3D missiles and laser beams at each other. So
laser swords.
And the work that they did to get that on there was amazing. So yeah, what a game to get on your demo disc, mate, because that's again another advert for what the Sega Saturn could do.
I mean, you're looking at that. If you've got those 4 demo discs at that point, now bear in mind, we were teenagers. Like, it's not as if like we are now working. You can go out and just pick a game up.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Back then, kind of mid to late 90s, you were relying on. That's what made demo disc such an event, because you were just in your teens. You didn't have that income there. You were relying on kind of like birthdays and Christmases and kind of like generosity. The odd wee as a wee bit of pocket money. You put that towards a new game, son. That kind of stuff. But so these demo discs were what I would say 90% of us that owned both a Saturn and a PlayStation at that time, who were that age group, we relied on these demo discs. That was how you got to try these games, because maybe your indie stores might, certainly Saturn wise, there wasn't demo pods set up anywhere. There was no, we've spoken about that in private, that there was no promotion locally in stores when it came to the Saturn. So these demo discs does give you the opportunity to get your hands on something new. And it's amazing how many times you would play these over and over again. It would get to the end there, there you go again. It was...
Yeah. You've hit the nail on the head, mate. Because that's exactly what I used to do. I used to have a paper round. I've mentioned this before on the podcast, all the way back to I think probably the very earliest episodes. But I had a paper round, putting papers through people's letterboxes. £12 a week was what I used to get, which it wasn't too bad for a kid, but that was my money to do whatever as a 14 year old, and yeah, that was my game money. So Sega, as I said, Sega Flash Volume 1 inspired me to get Panzer Dragoon Vi. I didn't get that until it would have been 97, I think, because I got my Saturn in 96. But stuff like Baku Baku, I didn't actually get Baku Baku until 98, when I'd got my Saturn modded, and I actually got a Japanese disc-only version because it was cheap and affordable, I didn't get the Golden Axe to Duel until, as I said, till much later on. But I certainly played that demo over and over and over and over again, because that was the best way of sampling the wider part of the library, because otherwise, if you were relying on yourself buying those games, and I think that's something that's missing today. It's something I loved about the Xbox 360 era, was that almost every game had a playable demo of it.
That's right. Aye.
And that was amazing. I had so many free trials, free demos, whether it was an Xbox Live Arcade or whether there was, a demo for a AAA game. These days, you might get a beta if you pay £100 for the latest Call of Duty, or if you pre-order the game at Electronics Boutique or something, or if you sign up for this, or if you sign up for the beta. And they're not so much demos, they're devs testing out the game and seeing, testing their service. They're not kind of like this. They're not like, a magical disc full of all these all these wares from the future that you won't be able to buy them all, but here's a sample that you can try and you can tell us which ones you like.
Aye, I mean the Xbox Live Arcade stuff. That's a great point. I mean, one of the stipulations that Microsoft placed at that time was that every Xbox Live Arcade game must have a free trial
Yeah.
version. So anything that came on, you knew you were at least going to get to try it.
Yeah.
And demos were also a big thing, even for full price games, especially around E3. The one that comes to mind straight away for that was actually Lost Planet.
Yeah.
And I remember there was such a big thing about, you could download the first level of Lost Planet to enjoy it after E3. And I'm pretty sure it was still on my 360. I went through my purchase history on the 360 itself, and it was there. The E3, was it E3 2006 comes to mind. And it was a demo from that, and it was the one that they showed on screen, running through the big thick snow, there's a towers, and you take them out, and there's jump in the big mech, and you walk about the turret cannons, and you go down into a wee cave, and there's all these things flying about in their pods, and you blow them up. So, it's a shame that, as you say, we're kind of going away for that, where you sign up to a beta, and these betas have got conditions, and you need to, you can buy this, gold edition for 120 quid, which has got access to the beta and stuff like that. So, gaming's a lot more kind of restrictive now, in terms of just allowing, especially, I think my nephew's like 16, same age that I was whenever I first got the Saturn, and you look at what he's got to do to get new content, if it's PS Plus or PS Now, whatever the subscription model they're using now. There's no real, like, obviously Xbox has got Game Pass, but he's not got that, so he's got a PS5, so you can put, they don't do like kind of demo discs or stuff like that anymore. There's nothing like that. There's not any great abundance of, like, you're not going to get a God of War Ragnarok playing the demo, for example. That's never going to happen. So, it's a shame that you kind of the kids of today don't quite have that kind of access to new big games as any kind of, just even a single level sample or a timed sample. It would be nice to see them bring that back, but it's all about money, mate. It's if they can sell 120, 130 quid gold editions that have got these betas built in as an enticer, what can you do?
That's it, mate. I mean, it's like Xbox, as far as I'm aware, they don't have any sort of demo system set up. I mean, Game Pass exists, but their games are already out. They're not like the window to the future that these demo discs were. And PlayStation have got the new PlayStation Plus. What is it? The Platinum tier is the highest tier, and if you pay for the Platinum tier, which is 20 quid a month or something absolutely ludicrous, you do get access to demos, which 20 just don't even get me started on that. It's absolutely outrageous, but it's a shame, mate. It's one of those things. Yeah, I know when you say, well, the youth for today, you don't even know you were born, mate. But they'll never know the kind of the magic of grabbing a brand new console and wow, you've got this extra disc in there that's going to let you play games that you can either buy now, but some of them aren't even out yet. So yeah, it's magical stuff, mate. And that's why it's why I think we wanted to talk about this topic today, because these demo discs had such a big imprint on our experience with the Saturn.
Aye, and then as you go on to Volume 4, again you're seeing some more kind of new games brought in, but you're starting to really at this point see the video aspect outweigh the playable demo part of it. Video wise, on Flash Volume 4, you had a mock Daytona a mock fighting Fighters Megamix, Max TT Superbike, Saturn Bomberman, SEGAGuys Volume 1, and then I'll get to this last video because this is the one that really got me. You've got Mass Destruction, Scorcher, Sky Target. Playable wise, you've got Sonic 3D, Flicky's Island, Virtual On again, but the arcade videos, mate. You had Last Bronx, Sega Touring Car, and Virtua Fighter 3, which was kind of cruel because we only got 2 of them.
I know, and it's because Virtua Fighter 3 at this point, I think everyone had already assumed was coming to the Sega Saturn, and we have, we spoke about this before, and I'd love to have seen how far that one got, but God, what could have been with that one? And it really is, when you look back at it now, it kind of is a big tease and a little bit of heartbreak. You've got Virtua Fighter 3 that didn't come at all. You've got Sega Touring Car, which, I think as we've played it more over the years, we've warmed to it a bit more. But I don't think there can be any doubt that coming off of the back of Sega Rally and the Sega Rally team that did it, it was a disappointment. But Last Bronx, fantastic Saturn port in the end. But I think, again, when we're talking just now about seeing a window to the future, nothing exemplifies it better than that video demo.
Aye, and it's a touring car one that kind of sticks in my mind because, again, it's the music. Because they didn't use the Avex tracks. I think it's just the actual Sega music, and it's like ding, 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 and it's on the second stage that the video shows you, and it's like kind of the driver's perspective, not the behind the car, and they're right up the back of an Alfa Romeo and going round in the mountains on your left hand side, and the track with advertising the kind of the fencing on your right hand side, Obviously, Last Bronx speaks for itself. That was a very faithful port of the Saturn, but it was Virtua Fighter 3 that really was exciting about that one. And at that point in time, you were reading the hints that were coming from Sega Saturn magazine, from CVG, from reading kind of obviously your other kind of multi-format magazines or things at the time, and they're saying Virtua Fighter 3 is coming. There was the hints about VF3 being worked on, and there was an accelerator cartridge, and oh my goodness, look, VF2 is amazing, but look what 3 looks like, and then it's sadly we never ever got it. But yeah, I mean, touring car, you mentioned that we've warmed to it over time. It's definitely one of those games where you need to play the Japanese version, because the PAL version at the 50 hertz it's amazing what that extra kind of wee boost and the kind of frame rate and speed does for it. It's still jerky. It still needs a 3D control pad to be remotely playable. You can't play it with a D-pad at all. You need to play it in manual transmission and go between 4th and 6th gear, apart from the last track. And even at that, the last track, even on the Japanese version or American version, can be pretty unplayable at times. You're heading towards those hairpins at speed, and the stutter kind of kicks in just before the hairpins, and sometimes it can be quite jarring. Try to kind of take that last course. But back in the day, mate, on the PAL version, I did finish first. I did somehow manage it, so yeah, somehow. But that was definitely that was probably the first kind of major kind of look to the future on the demo discs that you'd had at that point. Obviously, we spoke about Virtual On, which would be 2 of the previous discs that we got that. But looking at these were kind of 3 major, 2 Model 2 and a Model 3 arcade game that were coming up, and you're sitting there thinking, is Saturn going to do Model 3? Is it?
Yeah, I know. As I said before, seeing Virtua Fighter 3, seeing the eye movement in the attract mode, and in that specific demo, you could see how advanced it was, and the prospect of that coming to the Sega Saturn. I mean, one hand, it was like, how in the world are they going to do this? But on the other hand, it was extremely exciting. And at this point, I hadn't played it, so it was amazing to see. So a massive hint of things to come.
Aye, I mean, it didn't stop there. We've still got three more of these sampler discs to go through, and again, we're still seeing, albeit small, kind of introductions of new games. But again, Volume 5, we had Die Hard Arcade playable, we had Sega Rally again. That was the kind of first real hint, I think, at a wee bit of desperation that they're bringing, Sega Rally back on there. Sonic 3D Flicky's Island, but then we've got another new entry out of absolutely nowhere, Sonic Jam.
This is a really interesting demo disc, and this is one that I still have, and one that, in fact, I don't think I played 2, 3, and 4 back in the day. I think I've had to rely on the memory for those, but Volume 5 is one that I've enjoyed getting my old Kit Kat. All my demo discs are actually in here. And have been for the last 26 years. But yeah, I've still got my Sega Flash Volume 5, and Die Hard Arcade was the most played game on there. Again, another one where I ended up buying the game on the back of it, which again, it was the Japanese version, but there we go. Sonic 3D as well. I absolutely loved that, and I think I've talked about that before. That I played that demo to death. Loved, that gave you the first act of the first stage and the special stage. So that was absolutely fantastic stuff. But the Sonic Jam demo. So obviously this is a 1997 disc, which you rightly say, mate. That's when we're starting to see the third party for the support for the Sega Saturn kind of fall away a tiny little bit. But Sonic Jam's an interesting demo because it's all the Japanese version. So it's a huge demo, by the way, because you get to play the Sonic Jam section, which is going into the various. You go in, you get the UI with 4 carts, and those 4 carts they've all got the Japanese artwork on. Now it's all just crammed into it, so it's not power optimized like the Power Sonic Jam will be, with not just the power artwork but full screen and closer to full speed. But it's fully bordered, a little bit slower. You can tell it's a little bit laggier through going through the menu. But seeing the Japanese cart art really is quite interesting when you're doing that. And then the cherry on the top of that one is obviously the Sonic's World. It was playable as well. And that really was a huge tease, because you just get one minute to run around that 3D environment.
Yep. Aye. And you had to make the absolute most of it.
Yeah.
But again, you're sitting there, you're thinking, this is what a 3D Sonic game could be like. Again, it was, obviously we all know what happened. Sonic Extreme got cancelled, and there never ever would be a 3D Sonic game, so this was the closest to. I think there's a fan project out there just now to kind of remake a Sonic game using the Sonic Worlds
there is
interface.
I think it's on PC, that one. I think it's a PC game, but it's using obviously the Sonic World's Sega Saturn assets. I'd love to see a Sonic game made on the Sega Saturn with those assets, but maybe one day.
We can but dream, mate. The fan community are doing some amazing stuff, so
yes.
Hey, you never know. But you were talking about obviously kind of 3D support as well. So in terms of video demos on Volume 5, we had Duke Nukem 3D, one of the Saturn's most revered first-person shooters, lobotomy, doing great work. Last Bronx, the Saturn version, Wipeout 2097, big hit PlayStation game. I still think it's a great version. Dragon Force, Enemy Zero, and Resident Evil are on there, along with a Sega Touring Car Championship Saturn demo. So a wee bit of kind of third-party stuff still in there for stuff to come, but you're definitely seeing, as I said before, that the video aspect is starting to outweigh the playable side. But again, what you did get in the playable side, that Sonic Jam demo is just that made that disc worth it alone.
Yeah, I think it did, mate. But do you know what? You're right about the video demos, but I have to admit, when it came to SEGA Flash Volume 1 and other demos I played at the time, I probably normally watch, we talked about the arcade video, and I watched that a fair bit. But when I had this SEGA Flash Volume 5, the Resident Evil demo, the Sega Touring Car demo, the Dragon Force demo, and the Last Bronx demo, I watched those over and over and over again. Resident Evil the most. I think at this point I played it on the PlayStation, and then so I was so excited about playing it on the Sega, finally owning it myself on the Saturn. Sega Touring Car, again, so hyped for that. Dragon Force was one I was like, oh, what's this? And then I was like, oh look, how many sprites on this screen? So I've still got the demo music in my head from watching that.
And that's the thing as well. The music that accompanied these demos, again, we'll say they're so ingrained that it sounds so stupid. How can this sound? I mean, I've owned so many PlayStation demo discs, I can't remember music for them. But from these Saturn ones, like, they just trigger little kind of memories. But I mean, you're talking about watching these demo discs over and over again. I mean, I've already mentioned on this podcast in the past the embarrassment of the Amiga Street Fighter 2 demo. So at least you weren't playing Last Bronx's video and pretending you were playing it.
This is true, mate. This is true. I think the Resident Evil demo is quite interesting again because it's the Japanese version, and I think from memory it's been a while since I booted it up, but I think there is some extra like scenes in that demo that aren't in the Western version, because the Western version is edited. I'll need to check, but that's how I remember it, at least. But that one, what a disc! What a disc, indeed.
Yeah, and I mean, number 6 again. You're starting to see some new demos coming through. We had Worldwide Soccer '98 make its Flash debut. Steep Slope Sliders, mate. What a game that is. Sega Touring Car gets a playable demo, and then for your videos, it was Enemy Zero, Panzer Dragoon Saga, NBA Action '98. Sonic R makes its first Flash appearance, and The Lost World Jurassic Park as well. From memory, The Lost World Jurassic Park was in it. That was the arcade demo again?
I think I've got a feeling that this was actually like the 2.5D platformer that was on the Saturn. Yeah. This is one that I don't have that much experience with. Again, another one I've had to play on the Fimra. I didn't play it back in the day. And we'll come on to number 7 in a minute. But for some reason, I recall seeing that Panzer Dragoon Saga rolling demo before, because in terms of timeline, this Panzer Dragoon Saga demo came before the Disc 1 and before, obviously, Sega Flash 7, which I did have. But I remember seeing it fairly early. I can't remember how. Either I think maybe a friend had it, but I remember watching it, and it was literally just the opening cinematic, which is, when you boot the game up, you get that intro. But that was, at the time, absolutely spellbinding.
With that music again,
yeah.
It's. So I was wondering if The Lost World, because this isn't one I remember too much playing. Volume 6. That's I was wondering if perhaps The Lost World would have been another tease. That again, maybe another light gun game. But if it was the old kind of 2.5D platformer, then less said the better.
Yeah.
But again, mate, number 7. A lot of repetition here. We get Steep Slope Sliders and Sega Touring Car again. We do get another NBA Action '98 and Sonic R rolling demo. Panzer Dragoon Saga gets another rolling demo. Shining Force 3 makes an appearance. Winter Heat, Burning Rangers, and The House of the Dead make appearances as video demos as well.
Yeah, the House of the Dead one is it's quite funny. Do you remember what it looks like? Have you booted up recently, that rolling demo?
Not recently, but I'm going to guess that it was not quite Saturn footage.
It was Saturn. It was absolutely Saturn footage. The problem is that you select the monitor, and then it moves back from the monitor, and this tiny little screen in the corner there has got the attract mode and the first stage footage. So, those low quality textures and any other unsightly things are kind of hidden by the fact that the window is shrunk down to about a fifth of the TV size.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've already mentioned the kind of exchange that I had on YouTube comments a while ago with one of the guys that worked at Tantalus and worked on the port, and the constraints that they had and the time pressure they had to get that port done. So that's maybe a wee bit of kind of cheek on Sega's part. We'll just make the window really tiny. It's like, they won't notice.
Yeah, the rest of that one though, mate. Again, that's another one. And this was Sega Saturn Magazine's very last Sega Flash demo disc, the very last cover disc that they would have. But Shining Force 3 was one rolling demo that I watched over and over and over again. Winter Heat, not so much. The other ones, I think, but I'm trying to think of the timeline for this, but I think some of these, like Burning Rangers, I bought on release. The House of the Dead, I bought on release. Winter Heat at the time, I bought that on release. But Shining Force 3, I was extremely excited about. Now, this one I did actually play. Obviously, we're talking about the repetition on here. I did play Sega Touring Car Championship and Steep Slope Sliders for the very first time, even though they were on Sega Flash Volume 6. Sega Touring Car, I was rubbish at it, and I couldn't get to grips with it, and I kind of, played that demo, saw the reviews, and kind of just quietly sidled it off. Steep Slope Sliders, though, and I'm sure you remember, that kind of mid-90s craze around snowboarding when Cool Borders came out, and every PlayStation magazine was saying it was the greatest thing ever, and I remember playing it at a friend's and thinking, this is a bit rubbish, really. But then I played Steep Slope Sliders, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. It's the demo is fantastic. I mean, you got a selection of borders, and then you've got the course, and the game is so fluid and so reactive. It's made by Cave, who do a lot of the shoot 'em ups, and it's like they took the whole premise of a shoot 'em up is to be fluid and reactive, and no latency. That's kind of how Steep Slope Sliders feels, is that it's just so reactive. Just absolutely love the game, and that's another one that was like, yep, when I can, I'm buying that.
I mean, that was one that I never bought, but this demo actually prompted Sam to buy it, so we used to play it at his. And again, I just remember he had that one. The later releases in the Saturn games came in the plastic cases. I always remember that. I think that was one of the first plastic cases, because I remember he got it and I was like, it's a different case. What's this? Where's the shoddy cardboard that's going to fall off? But he bought that off the back of that demo and absolutely loved it, and that was kind of my exposure to the full game was obviously through him having that. So Steep Slope Sliders is a brilliant game, absolutely brilliant. It's great what you said there about Cave taking what they learned from the kind of, it's still done Patchy and all those kind of games that they did, so maybe the positioning of the trees was meant to be their version of Bullet Hell on a snowboarding game, because there was some rather trickily positioned trees in some of their tracks. But that's a great game, mate.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And if that's the last SEGA Saturn demo, I think they kind of went out with a bang, because that was a fantastic one. That Steep Slope Sliders game, and the music in that is fantastic. And I've got the full game now. I've had it for years, but whenever I think of the music from Steep Slope Sliders, I can only think of the music from that demo. That's the only one that sticks in my head, and it's a bit like the music that I was talking about earlier, in that I don't really hear it in the game that often. Like the Dragon Force one, I don't hear it in the game that often. The same with this Steep Slope Sliders track, but whenever I think of the game, it's that music from the demo that sticks with me. But yeah, the Burning Rangers stuff, I think I remember watching that. I got to pick the game up a bit later. NBA Action, I think I wasn't too impressed with that one. The Panzer Dragoon Saga rolling demo, I watched that a couple of times, but I think at this point we'd had a big dose of Panzer Dragoon Saga the issue before. But I think before we get into the non-SEGA Flash disc, mate, I think we'll take a nice little musical interlude, as is the case. And what better track to slide into than the intro music from the SEGA Flash demo disc. So here we go.
You're listening to WinterFest 2022, only on Radio Sega. For a full programming schedule, head to radiose.ga/winterfest.
that was the Sega Flash intro music. Might sound similar to the menu music that came along earlier, but you can't beat some of that music, can you? Boom, 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 boom.
It's just intrinsically tied to Christmas memories and just Saturn memories in general. Just part of growing up with the Sega Saturn, mate. That's it.
Yeah, it is, mate. It's one of those nostalgic nerves, isn't it, that gets tickled. It just unlocks that memory, and I think, and this is one of the reasons why I'm glad that we did this. We just talk so much about the games, and these games are so accessible now. You know, whether you're playing on an emulator or you and I have both got ODEs. You've had the Fenrir for a couple of years now, and it's crazy to think that we've got access to all these games. But when you think back to how we first experienced them, and it's kind of magical in that way. But we've covered off the official Sega demos, mate. But and there will be a couple more Sega demos that we get to the end of. But there were a couple of unofficial demo discs, which I think were very interesting.
Aye, and we're moving on to Saturn Power now. There wasn't many of them, and they were very third-party focused, as you would expect. Sega Saturn magazine being the official magazine, having access directly to Sega. Richard Ledbetter, Mr. Digital Foundry, making these trips to Japan and getting deals for a very big demo that we're going to speak about at the end of the show. Saturn Power didn't really have the access that SSM did, but there's still some pretty intriguing games on here, two of which never actually came to be.
Yeah, we'll discuss those. But there's certainly one that never came to be, and one that, whether it came to be or not, I'm still not 100% sure if it's the case. Let's talk about the headline one first of all, which is odd because it's April 1997. But Tomb Raider this was the first time I actually got to play Tomb Raider, was via this demo disc, and this was another one where I played this demo over and over and over and over again, because at the time my £12 a week paper round money didn't stretch to Tomb Raider. But yeah, I loved it. It was the second stage from memory. So straight into the action on this. Well, none of the intro from the first level, but this was what sold Tomb Raider to me, and I wouldn't get Tomb Raider until later on when I got my Saturn chips in 1998 and got the US version of all things.
Was this the demo that had the section of the level where you went into the wee kind of square water pool and went down?
Yeah.
Aye, you went underneath, pulled the lever, then go back at yourself up into the wee room. Aye.
That's it.
Yep. And I remember those water effects absolutely blowing you away at the time.
Yeah.
It was just great with the colour changes and the ripple of the water, things like that. Just great to see. Obviously, the other two demos on there playable were Blam Machine Head and Swagman. Now, I have never played Swagman.
Yeah, so Blam Machine Head, at the time, I absolutely loved that game, and this is another one that I played the demo a lot. I didn't actually get it until this year. It's one of those games that I've always wanted, but I didn't want to pay that much money for. So it's one of those ones where I thought, well, I don't want to pay more than £10 for it. It's hard as nails. It's really tough. I used to be able to ace that demo. But now I can't even get past the first level on the actual full game. I was playing it recently, like the full game. But I think the setup with it is crazy, because you get the entire first part of that game. So you get the intro with the Southern Belle heroine. So, and the doctor was really evil. And he's the creepiest antagonist I've ever seen. He's like, okay, baby, now that you got control over me. And it's like, oh, what is wrong with this guy? And
get the heebies even hearing the impression.
Yeah,
it's like...
he's horrible. And basically he's a scientist, and I think she's the scientist, and he ends up attacking her. and then strapping her to the machine head, which is a vehicle that's basically got machine guns and everything on it, but also has a nuclear bomb on it, so she fucks around and he's going to blow her up. And he sends her out into this wasteland. It's crazy, but at the time, this was a fully 3D open world. Well, I say open world, but the levels were quite open. You could go around fulfilling the objectives, and visually, yeah, it's got its flaws, but it's quite impressive that it's this fully 3D environment that you can kind of just roam around, shoot things in. The enemies are a little bit uninspired, but it's quite ahead of its time in the fact that it's got so many different objectives and how you go about, fulfilling them. So I thought at the time I loved that demo. Swagman was another one that I did quite enjoy. I did play this demo recently, in preparation for this episode, and it's a very odd one. It's a lot weirder than I remember. I remember it being basically Zelda in your pajamas. That's how I remembered it.
Put that in the box.
Zelda.
Swagman, 4 out of 5. Zelda in your pajamas.
And it's a lot weirder than that, because you're basically talking to your pet bug, who manifests as like some big wise man out of a treasure chest, and then you go around collecting other bugs. It was really odd. It very is like the stage design, the world design is very much the way the puzzles are. Very early on, you get bombs to blow up a hole in the wall. Is very much Zelda-like. Your weapon is a flashlight, and you pick that up and you kind of swipe as if it's a sword, and that's how you kill enemies. So it very much is. It's Zelda in your pajamas, but I quite enjoyed it. Now, we talked about the two games that never made it to market. Swagman, to this day, and it's one of these ones I really should check up on. I check on eBay, and I see some listings for it, but I'm not sure if they're reproductions or not. I'm not 100% sure whether this game actually made it out into the wild. So
Never seen it in retail, no?
Never saw it in retail. And I think Saturn Power was first issue. This was obviously Saturn Power issue 1, and it was cover dated June 1997, so a little bit later in the Saturn's life. And obviously there's another game on here that came out that was on the demo disc, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I think we're getting to that point now where Saturn third-party support really started to dwindle in 1997, because the other game that we've got on here is the rolling demo of Fighting Force.
Hi, which, as we've found out since, was actually pitched to Sega to be a potential 3D Streets of Rage game.
Oh, it's unbelievable when you think of that. And you look at this rolling demo, and I don't think that it's actually a video. I think it's actually all done within software, and it's just a rolling demo rather than a movie, which is really cool. The character designs are very different. Hawk is blonde, so I think he's still got some of his kind of Axel Stone design about him. I remember this was another rolling demo / video that I used to watch a lot, because I was actually quite excited about this. But unfortunately, it never got to see the light of day. I think, and we'll get onto the next disc as well, but I think this disc is important because of that. We've got a game that never actually manifested itself into an official Saturn release. There's no prototype available on kind of Hidden Palace or anything as of the time recording, but obviously that prototype exists. The version of this game was developed for the Sega Saturn and got quite far along by the looks of things. It's a fascinating piece of history there.
I mean, someone had to have played it to record the footage.
Exactly.
So there must be. I mean, look what's happened recently. This Sacred Pools that's just appeared out of nowhere that someone's found now. It's not my cup of tea, Sacred Pools, but I think the premise of the fact that there's still people out there finding these kind of either completed and binned or partially completed kind of projects. There's still hope that maybe one day on a dev kit somewhere that this Fighting Force demo shows up, because, as I said, someone had to play it to make the footage, and it does, for all intents and purposes, look as if, as you said, it did get pretty far on. So, I never know, mate. Maybe before we turn 50 or something, it might appear. Get ready for 40 years on.
Well, it's like obviously the Castlevania one on Dreamcast was a huge one. Obviously, that's more recent. But then we also had Super Star Wars on the Sega Mega Drive appear last year, I think it was. Which, someone's had that tucked around the back of the sofa for a good 30 odd years. So, yeah.
You just got to hope that these things. I'm still holding out for VF4 on Dreamcast, mate. I'm still convinced it exists, and nothing will tell me otherwise.
VF4 on Dreamcast, VF3 on Saturn. That's the holy grail, isn't it?
That's it, mate. We'll cling on to that for dear life.
It's like no, Endgame. Don't give me hope.
don't give me hope. We can bring them all back.
Hawkeye, like, don't give me hope. But talking about Saturn Power discs. Obviously, there was a couple more, but the next one was the Gremlin disc. Now the core disc, as I say, I loved Bland Machine Head, Tomb Raider, obvious quality there. Zelda in your pajamas, you can't go wrong with that. The Gremlin disc was a little bit more of a mixed bag. So, Actual Soccer Club Edition, I wasn't a big fan of that. I think by that point we had Worldwide Soccer, we'd had FIFA 97, and I think they were both games that were better than Actual Soccer Club Edition. The worst thing about this is that it only gets worse from here, but no less intriguing. Hardcore 4x4, did you ever play that, mate?
Did not, mate. Not one I've touched.
No. I actually owned Hardcore 4x4 before playing this demo, and quite funny that obviously I'd get my paper round money on Saturday. I'm still getting the paper round money here. We're still in this era of Mega Driver, £12 a week paper money.
You must have been the most prolific paper boy in bloody England at this point, mate.
The paper, I had it since the paper boy, just throwing them through the windows.
Hey, Mr. Smith.
Exactly. Oh, sorry, that'll go on the head. So I used to go into Curry's when I got paid, usually with a couple of my mates, and I remember going in there, seeing if there was anything in kind of my £20 budget. I might have saved up 2 weeks worth of money, not spent it on crap. So I have 2 weeks and I could buy, a £20 game. I remember going in there and couldn't find anything. At this point, this was 97, and this is when the Curry shelves were dwindling. They've gone in there. I was like, Knights have got that, Virtua Fighter 2 have got that, Sega Rally got that, Panzer Dragoons Fire have got that. What else have we got? Hardcore 4x4 for 99p. So I've gone over to the shop assistant. I've gone, excuse me, is that price right? He's gone, well, it's on there, isn't it? It must be. So, I've got 20 quid in my back burner. Just went, all right. Took 5 of them. Paid my £4.95 and off I went. It was not a good game. When I saw this on the desk afterwards, it was kind of like, oh no. I think I took 3 over to cash converters and traded them in for something else, and then I took the other 2. My 2 remaining ones. I didn't keep a single one for myself. I took them both to CEX in Rathbone Place in London and traded them. I think I got 8 quid each for them trading, I was like, wow.
Suppose I went back to try and get the rest of that bloody cookie stock.
I know. The timeline between me going to a CEX is like a good year later, though. I don't know why I kept 2 copies for so long, but yeah, if only I knew, mate, I would have kept them. But it's one of those ones where I've got absolutely no desire to play that game ever again. The game was poor, and unfortunately, that demo was pretty poor as well. So the quality's not great on those. But what was interesting, and again, possibly worse than Hardcore 4x4, played it lately, but much more culturally significant to Sega Saturn, is Reloaded.
I mean, I enjoyed the first loaded game on the Saturn. It's interesting that, and I've never played the Gremlin demo disc, so you sent me a screenshot earlier on of the Fighting Force demo and obviously the Reloaded, and even in that small kind of screenshot, Reloaded doesn't look that great. So I mean, you said it didn't run that great either.
It's heartbreaking, really, because I'm like you, mate. I played Reloaded and fell in love with it almost instantly. It's very, very much of that kind of Chaos Engine kind of ilk. Very fast, very fluid, very advanced for the Sega Saturn at the time, because it had the lighting effects, which were, everyone was saying the Saturn can't do this kind of red shaded, can't do these lighting effects, and here was Loaded, looking almost 1-to-1 with the PlayStation version, and playing so well. I absolutely adore that game. So I was so excited for Reloaded, and then I played this demo, and from the very first seconds that the game loads, you're just hit with slowdown. It chugs something awful. And then you set off your smart pump, and I swear the frame rate must go to single digits. It's that bad, and it's terrible. Now, at the time, the PlayStation version, I think, was just about to come out. I think it was fairly typical for Sega Saturn games to be developed after the PlayStation versions, and the Sony PlayStation version was getting kind of mixed reviews. Obviously, Loaded 1 got pretty good reviews, but Reloaded wasn't getting great reviews. And this Sega Saturn port was, for all intents and purposes, even worse. I mean, this demo disc is significant because, obviously, Reloaded never saw the light of day in the end. And it's, again, fascinating that the only way to play Reloaded isn't via any lost, preview disc or anything anywhere. There's nothing on Hidden Palace again. There's no prototype on there, or alpha or beta. You've only got this Gremlin disc. So it's massively significant in that way. And, I know, Dean Mortlock, editor for Saturn Power, I think at the time, especially at the end of the magazine's life and its demise, he was saying, bemoaning the fact that obviously not being a official Sega Saturn magazine, they couldn't get the big marquee official Sega demos. But I think what he achieved, in a way, is kind of more historically significant for the Sega Saturn, because he's got footage and a playable demo of games that never saw the light of day on the system, and at the moment are the only real playable on hardware versions of those games. So as bad as that Gremlin disc is, and as bad as Reloaded was, you've got to admire the fact that it does something that we don't often see in the Sega Saturn, and something that is kind of something that's been lost to time.
He's pretty much managed to obtain footage and a playable demo of games that never ever came to be. So as you said, they're not a Hidden Palace. Obviously you can possibly download the ROMs or rips of the actual demo discs themselves to try them on an ODE, but the only proof that these games ever actually existed is on these demo discs.
Absolutely.
So while they're not great games, the kind of historical kind of relevance to them can't be understated. So no, fair play to them.
Yeah, absolutely. But one game which I don't think anyone can question the quality of, was with their 5th issue of Saturn Power, and that was Wipeout 2097.
Yeah, I mean that's speaks for itself. It's a port. We've mentioned obviously that if I'm looking back at it, I'm sure it was a video demo. Yeah, it was a video demo on Flash 5 of Wipeout 297. So the the official Sega Saturn magazine never ever got a playable demo of 2097, but yet Saturn Power managed to obviously get that one over the line. And again, we've championed the Saturn version of 2097. It's a wee bit slower frame rate wise. Yeah, it doesn't have the kind of fancy light trails at the back of the ships. We all know about the transparencies, but you put that 3D controller in, mate, and 2097 on the Saturn is absolutely brilliant to play, an absolute ton of fun. So yeah, that's a great demo. That's a great get for Saturn Power, that one.
It really is. As you say, mate, put the 3D controller in, that game absolutely sings. I think it really does show Saturn Power, because Core Design, Gremlin Interactive, and Psygnosis, what they all have in common, they're all British software houses. So you can imagine Dean twisting the arms of his friends within the industry to try and get these demo discs out there. I think he did a cracking job overall. Obviously, Saturn Power only lasted 9 issues because of how the Saturn was doing in the end, and obviously battling SSM, which that was a juggernaut itself in the Saturn world. But those 3 discs, obviously the quality, especially on the Gremlin disc, is mixed. But going out with Wipeout 2097, fantastic way to go.
Brilliant game.
But we touched on demo disc, mate. There's a couple of, they're still demos, but it almost feels like a disservice to call them demos, doesn't it?
Yeah, the last 2 kind of big hitters we're going to talk about, obviously. Again, you said they call them demos, but the amount of content that's in this to call them demos is kind of a bit of a disservice. It's a bit embarrassing, actually. I mean, obviously, the first one is one which you still play every year as a kind of a festive, it's a must do. It's just on your kind of your schedule, and that's obviously Christmas nights to count down to Christmas. That's your very own SEGA Saturn family advent calendar.
Absolutely is. Every year, without fail, Christmas nights has got to go on, and it kind of works like an advent calendar when you're unlocking everything, matching your presents and everything, and unlocking the weird karaoke mode and little CG renders and everything. Obviously, the ultimate goal is to unlock the really weird and buggy Sonic the Hedgehog into Dreams mode. But, is it a demo or is it a full game? Because, you've only got the 2 stages on there. But you have got both characters. You have got a load of unlockables, which is going to take a significant amount of time to get through. And, God, it's chock full of content. It's interesting enough that the Japanese version is in a proper full-on jewel case, as if it's a full-on release.
They bundled a console with it. There's actually you've got it.
Yeah, I've got the box. Yeah,
aye. So that says all, that they actually packaged a full console up. Lovely, they've kind of printed the ribbon, the Christmas ribbon on it to make it look like a wrap present, and it's bundled with Christmas nights. So, tons of stuff in it, and again, just a great twist on an already classic game.
It is, and yeah, you that Saturn box, you kind of slide the Model 2 box out from the sleeve. That's the Christmas Nights ribbon box. But then you pop open the top, and Christmas Nights is sitting there at the very top of it. It's lovely stuff. Obviously, that's not how I first got to play Christmas Nights. The way I got to play it was very much, as we mentioned earlier. I went into Curry's, and it was Curry's in Watford actually, where I actually bought my SEGA Saturn, but it wasn't when I got my SEGA Saturn. I must have gone in there for something else. Went in there and just saw stacks and stacks of these SEGA Saturn Christmas Nights into Dreams in the little cardboard sleeve.
That's right, the sleeve, yep.
And ended up picking up 2 of them. I don't know why I picked up 2. Don't know. I could have taken more. I could have just been a normal person and took 1, but for some reason I took 2.
Why not, mate? Think of how many of those probably went in a bin. That's a sad thing.
No. And the amount of money they go for now, it's shocking. But yeah, it was another one where it's like, is this free? I'll take a couple of those.
That was, for me, it was the Electronics Boutique in City Nook Centre. They had a table outside, and again, like you said, there was piles of them, and just a wee sign that said "Take one." And I'm like, no, a Christmas version. Don't mind if I do.
Yeah,
You know?
it's crazy to think that they were giving them away like that, but it also came out with SEGA Saturn magazine in December 1997. So obviously there were still people that there was still a demand for that game back then. So, but rightly so. I mean, the thing with Christmas nights is it's not kind of a demo that you pick up the full game and you think, well, I don't need to play this anymore. Like the SEGA Flash with SEGA Rally on it. You know, you're not going to go back to that Sega Rally demo once you've got the full game.
Aye.
But with Christmas nights, the full game doesn't really have much, if any, of the content in Christmas Nights into Dreams. You've only got the Clarice course, and even that is rendered differently because you've got all the the festive textures, the festive backgrounds, etc. like that. So, for all intents and purposes, mate, it's a spin-off game rather than a demo.
That's the best way to describe it, mate. A spin-off, totally. It's unique in its own way, as you say. It's not as if there's anything in Nights itself that you can go, all right, I'll just set that on the shelf. I mean, there's literally a reason to play it. You dig it out at Christmas, and it's one I'm actually going to use this year. I might see if my wee one wants to, because she's kind of, as I said, she likes to come in and go, Daddy, I want to play Sega. So, loves going on Sonic on the Mega Drive and stuff like that. So I think this year, given that she's with 4.5 at that point, I think it might be time to introduce it to Christmas nights.
Oh, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Yeah, it's so significant that even in the modern day releases, whether it's Steam, PlayStation, or Xbox, they've all got the Christmas nights extra content in there as well. So, yeah, calling it a demo is almost a disservice. It's absolutely a disservice. It's its own game. It's almost a spin-off. But then calling it a demo. Calling a demo a disservice applies to the next one as well, because it's not so much a demo as it is the entire first disc of a game.
Richard Ledbetter, I don't know how you pulled this off, mate, but to get the entire first disc of Panzer Dragoon Saga on the front cover of SEGA Saturn magazine, still remember getting that issue, still remember putting it in, loading it up, hearing that intro music, hearing that title screen music, Behold the Precious Wings. Within 15 minutes of playing that, I went on gameplay.com, pre-ordered it. Well, I need to have the rest of this. Just probably, of all the demo discs that generation on both Saturn and PlayStation, I think that remains just, that's the winner. To get the entire first disc of a game, to get Sega to take a punt on that, and actually just allow, a quarter of the game to go free on the cover of a magazine is crazy. But what a demo disc! I mean, demo disc. It's the first disc of a full retail game. It's not a demo disc. It's the
not.
first. Because there's been people as well. I remember a long while ago, before I went on my own kind of Twitter hiatus, and I was talking about, Panzer Dragoon Saga and that disc, and there was people saying, "Oh right, but I mean, it wasn't the full first disc," and I'm going, "No, it no, it really was. It was the full, like as if you just opened up a box in a shop and went, I'll take this, mate," and went up the road with the first disc. It was exactly, black disc, purple logo, disc 1 at the bottom. It was the full retail version, disc 1. Absolute madness.
Yeah, I cannot think that there's a single difference between that and the actual retail disc. I'm trying to think of the dates. I think it may have been a couple of months apart. I remember after playing that demo disc, the wait was absolutely agonising to play it, because you just, the first disc, whether they intended it that way or not, I think the game might have already been out in Japan at that point.
I think it was, aye.
But it felt manufactured that they'd end with that climactic battle at the end of the first disc with Ezel on top of her dragon, and it was a cliffhanger effectively, and he was just like, I need to know what's next, what's coming next, what happens, when does this come out? It's madness to think that there's more of those discs than there were copies of Panzer Dragoon Saga sold, because every single Saturn owner I can imagine who played that must have wanted to buy the game, and Sega just didn't make enough.
I've heard the numbers were as low as 5,000. I don't know what the actual number was that was ever put into circulation in the UK, but I mean, I've heard 5,000 mentioned, which would be absolutely crazy because it was so easy to get a hold of. Literally, I paid $38.99 on Gameplay.com for it. I remember pre-ordering it. I remember it came as Gameplay's orders did. It came the day before release, and the PAL version is beautiful. We've all seen people that have got copies. That slipcase, the 2 DVD style cases with there's not an actual game description on the back. You flip it round. Each of them has got unique kind of hand drawn artwork on them. The American version of that is, I don't know why the American version goes for more than the PAL version, because the American box and the artwork is really poor. You get like little cardboard or whatever it's holders inside with a little thing to hold, a little foam bar to hold it in place. The whole package is so poor compared to the PAL one. The PAL set's absolutely stunning. I said, just hope whoever bought mine back in 2008 better be bloody looking after it. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I actually had mine out earlier. It's put back on the shelf now.
It's a beautiful set.
It's absolutely gorgeous, and yeah, I've got the Japanese version as well, and it's one of these ones where the PAL version is definitely better, especially with the 2 individual slip cases that you pull out with the artwork on the back. Absolutely gorgeous stuff. I think when you think about the circulation of Sega Saturn magazine, I think even at the end of its life, it was around 32,000. And Sega only manufactured between 5,000 and 12,000 Panzer Dragoon copies. As I say, I think everyone that played that demo disc must have wanted to play Panzer Dragoon Saga, and there just wasn't the supply to meet that demand. So I think the reason why the American version goes is because I think that's rarer. I've got a feeling that it's rarer, or at least because there's a. It's hard to say whether there's a larger Sega Saturn audience in America, because I don't think it sold well there at all. But I think that's part of the reason why it's rarer. But yeah, mate, that first disc was just transformative, and same as you, mate. I had to get the game. I didn't pre-order it. I went to Game. Everyone knows that story now. Went to Game to get my copy, but my friend bought it. Long story short, broke mine, didn't get to play it 2 years later. There we go.
That's it. But no, what a way to round off the Sega Saturn experience. To go out with a bang like that. Just almost kind of going out with the same kind of bang at which it arrived. But by that point, unfortunately, the bittersweet truth of what was unfolding was plain for all to see. But here, mate, we wouldn't do it any other way.
We really wouldn't, mate. So we've been through all the PAL demo CDs, teasers, samplers, first discs. What was your absolute favourite out of those?
My favourite, and I'm still going to go back to it, I still have to go for the bootleg sampler. Just because I also used to put that in my CD player because I could listen to Ignition from Sega Rally on it, so it doubled as a kind of wee audio CD for me as well there. And again, you'd never heard game music of that quality. Again, you come from the Amiga, you go into the Sega Saturn, you're going from 16-bit kind of normal, kind of what you would expect to hear in the kind of Mega Drive style audio, to go to this CD quality. It's just so much more kind of almost like TV movie kind of style music, the clarity, everything about it, instrumental. So I think because Sega Rally is my favourite game ever, getting to play that and being totally blown away by it, and then having to double up as a CD, just Ignition is just ingrained in there. As much as Conditioned Reflex is my favourite track from Sega Rally, Ignition, again, like the bootleg sampler kind of menu screen I mentioned, like Sega Flash Volume 3's intro music and the menu music, they're just kind of ingrained in there. So it's bootleg sampler for me, mate. What about yourself?
Beautiful stuff, mate. Beautiful stuff. For me, it's hard to pick one, but Sega Flash Volume 1 comes very close. But that's Volume 5, Sega Flash demo. Because not only did I play Die Hard Arcade and Sonic 3D so much, but the videos of Resident Evil and the others on there. I watched so much, the Last Bronx video, the Wipeout video, Dragon Force, as I mentioned, watched that over and over again. Even Sega Touring Car, I watched that over and over again. And obviously, Sega Flash Volume 1, there's a lot of nostalgia there. And Baku, Panzer Dragoons Vi drove me to buy those two games. But then Sega Flash Volume 5 drove me to buy even more games.
and that was the purpose of them.
That was the purpose of it. And we're talking late 1997 at this point, maybe even early 98, when the Saturn really was, after Bernie Stolar's comments, and the writing was on the wall almost. But even playing that, I was thinking that the future was bright for this console. It's I was still absolutely enamored with it, and that solidified it. So yeah, that disc is always going to be very special, mate. And of course, the Sonic Jam oddity with all the, at the time, weird and wonderful Japanese artwork was just like, oh, this is different. So that's my pick, mate. That's my pick.
Good stuff, mate. Honestly, they're ingrained. I think if you grew up with a system, if you were, if it was part of your daily life, whenever it was Sega's main console, these demo discs were essential, and they really were a window into the future. And at that point, even up until you were getting to like seeing Last Bronx and VF3 and Sega Touring Car as rolling demos, even then, despite what you were hearing, despite the rumours about the Saturn kind of failing and all that kind of stuff, you still had that hope that, where this console's going, it's still the platform to be on. Well, we know it's still the platform to be on because...
Oh, but that's it though, isn't it? And I know we said this before, and people that are getting into the console now, love that people are loving the console now. People that, criticize it, that didn't play it back in the day, I don't think that they'll ever understand the love, the anticipation, and the hope that came out of, seeing these demos, playing these games, and just thinking that this little black box was capable of so much. And at no point was I thinking of picking up any other console. That was what I felt from owning the Saturn, from buying SEGA Saturn magazine, Saturn Power, and playing these demo discs. And it was truly a magical time, mate. Absolutely magical.
Aye. You hit the nail on the head there, mate. It is great people are coming to the system now, that people are maybe giving it more of a chance. Wish they'd done it at the time, and kind of giving it the light of day that it deserves. So it's kind of bittersweet, but at the same time, as much as people can put their hand in their pockets and pull out wads of cash and buy Panzer Dragoon Saga now and sit it on their shelf and whatever other games they want to buy, Sega Lord X has that very famous clip that I like to use, over and over again. If you'll never know the joy of playing Panzer Dragoon in 1995, you'll never know the joy of seeing Virtua Fighter 2 running on your console just months later. You'll never know the joy of seeing Sega Rally for the first time, for putting a 4 meg RAM cartridge from Japan in your system and seeing X-Men versus Street Fighter running the way it does. These are all moments that are, along with these demo discs and that word you used, hope, that this system wasn't going to fail, that this is what it was capable of. And money can't buy that, mate. That's up there.
It is, mate. And that's, I think, a great place to leave it. Obviously, we've only covered the PAL demo discs. Obviously, there's American ones. There are Japanese ones, around 40. I think there's some ludicrous number of Sega Flash Japanese demo discs. Very collectible. But hey, we've gone through the PAL ones. Tell us what your favourites are. What's your favourite PAL demo disc? What's your favourite Japanese demo disc? What's your favourite American demo disc? Please get in touch with us. You can catch us at SEGAGuys. You can catch me at Swooper_D. You can catch James at the Segaholic. We'd love to hear from you. For those on Radio Sega, enjoy the rest of Winterfest, and we will see you on the Sega side.
Sega!
その口に